Guest panel today, as always, ABC24's political analyst Otis Sanford, former Shelby County Commissioner Mark Billingsley, and Pastor Keith Norman of First Baptist Church Broad. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, Pepper.
So let's dive into the deadly storms. And of course, our thoughts are going out to everybody all over the Mid-South. All three states, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee, are under a state of emergency. We're going to take it to some video here. First, Lake City, Arkansas was hit hard. That one had a preliminary report of an EF3 tornado. And then Selmer, Tennessee, also that's another EF3 tornado that has preliminary reports as well. And we also had Senatobia, Mississippi footage where sirens actually didn't go off, and the crews are still working to make sure that those sirens are working in an event like this next time. We know in Tennessee there's been 5 confirmed deaths. And all of the governors were quick to act, and we know that helps with federal funding and FEMA whenever you declare a state of emergency for debris pickup or any type of assistance that's needed through damage like this. So I will start with Otis. Otis, just seeing that footage, it's really just astonishing and very heartbreaking. What is your take on just the damage and what it'll take to rebuild?
Well, it is devastating, and obviously my heart, as all of us, goes out to people affected by this. You know, Senatobia is 7 miles from my old home farm that we used to have. So I understand the devastation there. And I see at the state levels, I do see a response that's really appropriate and immediate. My concern, and we were talking about this off air, about whether the federal government will be in a position to respond the way it should. We'll just have to wait and see on that. But I was heartened to see elected officials like Governor Bill Lee, even David Kustoff was out, making sure that they were aware of what was going on and they would make the appropriate declarations in order for help to come to people who desperately need it.
And Pastor Norman, you mentioned federal funding and what that looks like now with the current administration in office. What are your concerns?
Immediately, my thoughts went to, if we're going to make cuts at the federal level, are the states ready to jump in, and are they ready to jump in quickly? The first trigger is always for the governor to pick up the phone and to call the president, and for the president to declare a state of emergency so that the federal dollars and all of the processes of support will begin to flow. And with the burden being shifted to the states now, because you remember President Trump has come in and said we need to hold back on some federal levels, and FEMA was one of those departments that he desired to cut. Just a few days ago, a judge challenged whether or not this should even be something that would stand up in court. So we're going to see how this works. I'll give another nod to the faith community, though. There are many members of the faith community that are already activating their systems, taking water to various places, collection points up in Bolivar at First Baptist Church there and around the state. Mississippi is responding. Arkansas is responding. Hospitals are responding. So I believe the people of good faith are going to do their part to really make up the difference where there may be some slow or delayed responses from federal to state supplies.
Of course, it's always amazing to see how people step up in moments like this. Mark, I want to ask you, I know when I covered tornadoes in Wynne, Arkansas 2 years ago that were very deadly, people started getting upset as the years went by and they didn't see enough. They they accused city leaders of not doing enough to help them rebuild. You were a former county commissioner. How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, I think everything to this point has been exceptional, like my friends have shared. You know, the governor acted actually in advance of the storm, which I thought was amazing. President Trump, the very next day, declared all 95 counties of Tennessee a declaration of disaster. So far, so good for our 95 counties. But again, in some of these counties, it's utter poverty. I'll pick on one you said earlier, Pepper, some sirens didn't go off in parts of Tennessee. Let's talk about Grundy County, one of the poorest counties in Tennessee. They have one tornado siren in Grundy County, for example. So in some counties, not only did sirens not go off, you have in a place like Grundy County, there's one siren in the entire area. So we have to, you know, if the governor was listening today, I would like to say to him, thank you for what you've done so far. But we've got to do some proactive things for our poorest counties like Grundy. And again, we've got to follow up. I do think we're going to have with our governor appropriate follow-up. I think we're going to have good follow-up. We saw David Kustoff in Selmer, where it was this utter devastation. I think we've got the right leaders to address this.
Yes, and I do want to touch on, I know you wanted to say something, but we do have a soundbite from Governor Bill Lee, who was in Selmer, Tennessee, out there with Kustoff in the background as well. Let's take a listen.
It's hard to take in, walking through an apartment complex, overturned cars, people's belongings scattered throughout the fields, the roofs off of the buildings. We know there was loss of life there. It is total devastation.
So yes, painting the picture there as well. Did you want to give one last comment?
30 seconds. I want to bring it to a local level for a second. The floods in our own city have to go away.
Absolutely.
We need to attach to this conversation and call for political responsibility for rebuilding the infrastructure of the city of Memphis. We're developing and we're trying to improve communities, but let's talk about it. The poor communities still suffer the most because they get flooded out when all of the infrastructure is built in other areas. And if you look at the communities by which some people had to drive to go home to because they don't have major thoroughfares to get to their home, they were flooded out. Their cars are flooded.
Right.
There was 3 feet of water in spaces like near airways and other places in the city. We have to fix that. We need to make that a political issue for our local upcoming elections.
Most definitely.
And just real quick, respectfully, I absolutely agree with you, Pastor, but this storm was so devastating. We saw massive flooding in all 7 cities inside Shelby County, and we need to have a community-wide conversation about flooding, because it's very scary.
Take the infrastructure dollars, make them apply right here in the city.
Across Shelby County.
Flooding and the potholes that are now going to be even worse after this.
Oh my God.